What is the ultimate top coat? Stick around and we'll tell you all about it. The ultimate top coat is a hybrid urethane coating. It comes in two sheens, both high gloss and a more of a natural matte sheen. Incredibly durable. It is amazing how much durability it gives you on your surfaces. Scratch and heat resistant, and it also is FDA approved for food handling. You're gonna apply this product 24 hours after your flood coat. Usually, if you're not gonna use a top coat, it can take up to 30 days before your surface is at its optimal hardness and that you can fully use it. With the ultimate top coat, you can fully use your surface in 2 days. That's what makes this product a game changer for those of us that are out there doing this as a business. All right, so like I said, the UTC comes in two different sheens, the high gloss sheen and what I consider to be more of a satin finish, not a true matte finish. One thing I like about the gloss is it does knock down the sheen just a little bit and it gives more of a realistic look. It doesn't look as plastic to me as if you were just to leave it a clear flood coat without anything on it. Now, with the with the high gloss, you will notice if you're in a certain light that it has a little bit of a visual texture. I don't consider that to be an orange peel, but you cannot feel it. However, if you do look in the light at a certain area, you will notice a little bit of a texture. Now, I get calls every day about people saying my finish is very textured. Now, the textured finish where you can actually feel it and it's really visual can be caused by several different issues, and we'll go into that a little bit later when we're mixing. But I really like the high gloss, but my very favorite is the actual matte finish. With the matte finish, in my opinion, it just gives a real, natural, realistic look. You can still see the mica powders. I have people ask me all the time, but can I still see my micas? Can I still see my diamond dust? And in my opinion, yes, you can, if it's applied correctly. So you can see here in this finish, you can still see all of the mica flakes that we used. We even have some of the diamond dust, and it is all still very easy to see. All right, so before we get started, there's gonna be a few items that you're gonna need. One, paint pans, all right? And we love this product called Press and Seal. It is the best thing. We use it all the time, and we put it on the inside of our pans so that cleanup is very easy. Just pull it out, throw it away. We also use it to wrap our heat guns and our torches so that when our hands are all sticky and we grab a hold of it, it doesn't mess up our torches. Next, you're going to need rollers. Now, there's two kind of rollers that we're gonna use. We can use the 6-inch, 1/4-inch nap rollers. We sell these on our website. You can also buy them at the big box store, and they work really well. And these are the ones that we use from the big box store. Now, what we've started doing is using the large 1/4-inch nap rollers. Now, these are kind of hard to find. Our Home Depot just started carrying them, so that's why we decided to check them out and see if we like them. We don't use them on small projects because it does soak up quite a bit of material, and if you're only mixing up a little bit of material, it's really hard to use these. So make sure that you're using a pretty good amount of product if you're going to use these large rollers. These rollers are available, like I said, at Home Depot, and these are the ones that we get. Alrighty. Okay. We also have the small pans, and we line those as well with the Press and Seal. All right, so prepping is super important. You don't want to use these rollers right out of the bag. You want to prep them and de-shed them. So the best way to do that is just to use some tape, run it over the surface, and it'll pull up all of that extra fuzz. Once you de-shed them, kind of looks like a scared cat. Now, also, once you de-shed them, don't set them back on a dirty surface. Make sure you put them in a clean area. All right, so before we start applying, we're gonna make sure that we sand the surface. And you'll wanna sand with a 220 or higher grit sandpaper. You don't wanna go with a real aggressive grit because you'll be able to see those scratches through the UTC. All right, here's a fun fact for you guys. When your sanding disc starts to get filled up, you can take a sanding belt cleaner. It's like a big old eraser. And that way you can clean your disc and not mess it up. All right, so for our edges, Kenny's going to just use a Scotch-Brite pad, or you can use sandpaper. Just make sure you do it by hand and don't use your orbital sander. You don't want to burn through those edges. The Scotch-Brite works really well on the rock edges because you can get into all of the little highs and lows. All right, so once it's sand, we'll clean up all the dust, spray it with isopropyl alcohol, and we'll be ready to go. All right, so another trick to getting your surface really clean is to take your tape and tap the surface, and that's gonna get all your dust off. All right, so we're getting ready to mix up our UTC, and we're gonna do the matte finish first. What you'll wanna do is get our PDF. Michelle Ellsworth and I from Desert Daisy Designs came up with this PDF that has the ratio that works best for us in our environment. It's got our water ratio and our mixing ratio. And so what we're gonna do is I've got 28 square feet. I'm gonna multiply that by 0.275. We used to use 0.375, but we were getting a lot of material left over, so we bumped it back down to 0.275. All right, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that amount, which comes out to 7.7 ounces of the UTC, which is what I'm gonna need, and we're gonna then multiply it by 0.16. So if we take 7.7, which is the amount of UTC, multiply by 0.16, that's gonna tell us how much water we need. So we're gonna use a little over an ounce of water, about 1.23. It's not imperative that the water is exact. If you're gonna err on a little more water than a little less water. So if you have a recipe, make sure that it's the updated recipe as of 9/15/21. There's a couple of other versions going around, but this is our latest one. If you don't have it, you can go to our website, RK3Designs.com, and you can download it from there, or just email me at Rhonda@RK3Designs.com. All right, so let's get started. So we know that since we have 7.7 total ounces of UTC, this is a 2-to-1 product. So part A, I'm gonna need 5 ounces. You'll want to make sure that you shake your bottle or agitate it very well before you start using it, especially on the mat, so that all of these mattifying agents get mixed up thoroughly. All right, now we're gonna come in with part B, 2.5 ounces. All right, it's super important that you mix thoroughly, but quickly. You only have about 15 minutes once part A and part B are mixed together. Now you'll also wanna mix the UTC first before you put in the water. All right, so you want this consistency of the product. All right, here we go. Pour that into the pan. And so if you're doing a large project, it's a good idea to have 2 people help you. So Kenny's gonna take the wet roller and I'm gonna come back with a dry roller. All right, so it's very important that you really load up your roller and get it saturated. You want plenty of material on the surface before you start your dry rolling. Now you don't wanna over roll or overwork the material once you get it on. You want to do your edges last because especially on a rock edge, that edge will cause your roller to have dents. So you really want to make sure that you get into all the crevices and all up underneath your edge. All right, so it's very important that you do obviously apply the UTC very quickly. That's why if you have 2 people on a larger piece, it makes it much easier. Now don't worry if you see lap lines while it's wet. You're gonna see those. The main thing is not to overwork your product. Back roll it with your dry roller just once. If you see really heavy roller marks left from the wet roller, just go over them as lightly as you can until you can't see them and then continue to roll. Also, once your dry roller becomes saturated, you need to change your dry roller. That's very, very important because as you start rolling, if your dry roller gets really saturated, all you're doing at that point is creating texture, creating an orange peel, because now all you're doing with that roller is just pulling the material up and causing peaks. So if you start to see that dry roller is not taking off the product and leveling it out, you need to have another dry roller prepped and ready to go because you're not going to have time to go prep another roller. So pro tip is to make sure that you have plenty of dry rollers prepped and ready to go. All right, another thing is to save on your rollers is once your dry roller gets really saturated and maybe you're doing a really large project, take that dry roller and let that now become your wet roller and then grab you 2 new dry rollers. Okay, so if you notice that maybe your roller left a little bit of lint, you can get you a pair of needle nose tweezers and you can pull that out. All right, cleanup is really easy, especially if you use this press and seal. I just pull the press and seal out and I have a very clean pan. Also, you can wash out your cup with soap and water. Warm water is best. However, you cannot reuse your rollers. You cannot wash those out. What I like to do is after I use my handle, I'll spray it with alcohol and it'll wipe up really clean. You want to make sure that you dedicate your rollers that you're going to be using for your UTC because it's very important that the rollers always roll very, very smoothly. If they are used for painting and you get paint around your edge, sometimes it won't roll as smooth, and that will definitely show up when you start to roll out the product on your surface. When you're doing smaller pieces, it's just fine to use a handheld sander instead of your orbital sander. We use the orbital sander when we're doing a bigger piece. It's just a lot quicker. But as long as you create a tooth for that UTC to grab onto, you'll be fine. But I do, on my edges, I do still remove my sandpaper. That way I can get the edge really nice. Okay, so we're gonna mix up our gloss UTC. Now the gloss is much thicker than the matte. Part A is really thick. And guys, just for FYI, part B is the same on both the matte and the gloss. So if something happens and you spill something or you need part B, it'll work with both of the sheens. So we're gonna add our part A. Now we know that we have 16 square feet. Each one of these cornhole boards are 8 square feet. So we're gonna take our measurements again the exact same way that we did for the mat. We're gonna take our square foot of the project, which is 16. We're gonna multiply by 0.275, and that's gonna give us 4.4, but I'm gonna bump it to 4.5. It makes the math a little bit easier. Then we're gonna divide that by 3, and that's gonna give us our point A and our part B. So it's going to be 3 ounces of part A and 1.5 ounces of part B. Then we're gonna take, again, we're gonna take that 4.5, which is the UTC amount, and we're gonna multiply it this time by 0.5. We're gonna be using a lot more water with this. With the matte, remember we multiplied by 0.16, but with the gloss, being that it's so thick, we want to multiply by 0.5. Again, just like with the mat, as soon as part A and part B are mixed, you're on the clock. Now, I want you to see how thick this is before I add the water. It's really, really thick. So now I'm going to add in 2 1/4 ounces of water. Make sure it's really mixed thoroughly. It's not quite as easy to mix the gloss thoroughly with water. It takes a little bit more time than it does the matte. I don't mix for a full 2 minutes either. I just make sure that I mix very thoroughly and then I'll pour it. Now, because we're doing a smaller mount or a smaller surface, we're going to be using the smaller rollers, but you could definitely use the larger rollers on this if you wanted to. I have prepped 2 rollers for dry rolling, back rolling, and 1 wet roller. I'll do 1 dry roller for each board. Again, we're going to saturate the roller. I'm going to let my handy dandy assistant here help us. Again, you want to make sure you get plenty of material on the surface. Continue to reload your roller. Now, if I were doing this by myself, I would do 1 board completely and then I would switch to my other board. And then what Kenny does is after he puts the product on, he'll very lightly roll out the thick roller lines and then he'll do his edges. All right, once he gets this all done, he'll start on the next board and then I'll come in with my dry roller and very lightly. I'm not putting any pressure on this roller. It's almost just the weight of the roller. Now the gloss finish is a much more forgiving product than the matte. So I highly recommend you guys practice on sample boards with both of the sheens before you do your big project, because there is a learning curve to this. All right, so I'm switching dry roller. If you see any really hard roller lines left from the wet roller, you can go over that 1 more time. Like I said, the gloss is much more forgiving than your matte is. Again, you're gonna see roller lines. You have to let that dry before you start judging it. All right, I wanna talk to you guys a little bit about the durability of the product. Prior to the UTC coming out, Stone Coat Countertop Epoxy alone is very durable. But over time, you're gonna get little micro scratches, everyday wear and tear. With the Ultimate Top Coat, the added durability is amazing. Can I scratch this? Absolutely. If I took a knife, pair of keys, pair of scissors, and I really dug in, I could definitely scratch this. But everyday wear and tear, normal abuse, absolutely, this is the best product that I have found on the market. All right, so I'm gonna take a key, a paint key, and I'm gonna really bang it up. Now, what you're seeing here is not scratches. It's just a marred, it's marring. You see that? There is no dent. Now, I would not do that to my granite. Now, these little marks that you see, that's not scratches. If you just get a cleaner, in this case, it's just the alcohol, and you go over that, it absolutely comes out. I can do the same thing to the matte. Nothing. Let you see. Very, very durable. All right. So we know that it's very durable for scratches, but what about heat resistance? Heat resistance up to 475. easily. I would never do this to my granite or to my marble. Now, the minute that wears that, I can touch it, I can bang it. Absolutely nothing. And I can immediately touch it. Same thing with the mat. As soon as that fire goes out, I can immediately touch it and it's not hot. Perfect. I would never do that to my natural stone. And I know for a fact that if you put really hot pots down on laminate, you could easily scorch it. So guys, I am a firm believer that this product is absolutely amazing. And like I said, with the gloss, you get a tiny bit of visual texture. However, if you feel it, you cannot feel that texture. But there's not a top coat in the US that are in the world that I know of that you can roll on that's not going to leave some sort of a very, very small visual texture. Now, I also get asked, can I spray the UTC? And the answer is no. Ask me how I know. I ruined 2 sprayers trying. So it cannot be sprayed. Now, are there products out there that you could spray and you would get a very smooth finish? Yes, there are. The problem with that is most of those products are not DIY friendly. They are high VOCs. They don't have the heat resistance nor the scratch resistance that this product offers. So in my opinion, like I said, as easy it is to use, easy it is to mix, 0 VOCs, high durability, you can't go wrong. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about things that can happen and issues that you can get when you're putting on the UTC. Like I said, I do have people ask me often about the texture. Now, a couple of things with the texture. If you put the product on very, very thick and then you roll it and you continue to roll it with a dry roller until your dry roller is saturated, you don't switch a roller, what's happening is as you roll, you're creating peaks and you're not pulling that product off. That is one thing that could leave texture. Also, if you overwork the product, if you dry roll too much and you don't have enough product on the surface, that can also cause some texture. Also, you have about 15, maybe 20 minutes of work time. If you leave it in the pan and then you go too long, once your open time is starting to kind of leave you, your product's starting to get a little bit tacky, and then you try to roll it on, that is definitely a time that you will get texture, because what's happening is the product's starting to get thick. As you roll, it's creating peaks and it's not going to be able to self-level. Now, your temperature also is a huge factor in how your product is going to perform. If it's very, very cold in your environment, you know, you're below 70 or even 65, it's going to take longer for your product to set up. I've had people call me, and I've never had this issue in the summer, but it seems like I get more calls in the winter saying it's been, 13 to 15 hours and their top still seems a little bit tacky. Guys, give it a full 24 hours and then touch it, because the temperature does matter. Also, humidity. High humidity will cause it to cure just a little bit slower. Another issue that I've had people tell me is they use a roller and it's not a 1/4 inch roller. The 1/4 inch nap roller really does make a difference. You use a thicker nap, you're going to have texture no matter if you're rolling the matte or the gloss. So keep it at the 1/4 inch nap. Also, in my opinion and in my experience, I've not had good luck using the foam rollers. The foam rollers will leave little micro bubbles, and then when you try to back roll, you just can't get a very smooth, flawless finish like you can with the 1/4 inch nap. All right, there's one other type of roller that you can use. It's the microfiber rollers. And they're really good. Sherwin-Williams has some really, really good rollers. They're just more expensive, and I don't find they do a better job to justify the price difference. Time before you can use your countertops. Give your UTC at least 24 hours before you install. I prefer to wait at least 2 days, 48 hours, and then we can install. Now, unlike doing the countertops without the UTC, a full cure on epoxy to get its optimal hardness is about 30 days. So if you install a countertop less than 30 days and it doesn't have the UTC, that product is not at its hardest. But with the UTC, we can install countertops in 2 days. That's a total game changer in this industry and in our business, because we can just really kind of get our jobs going a lot quicker. So that's another perk of using the Ultimate Top Coat. In our installation business, we don't even offer the countertops or the shower walls at all anymore without the UTC. We're going to let these set up until tomorrow. We'll come back, we'll do some flyovers, and you guys can see what our products look like. Guys, I hope you liked this video. I hope you found value, and we gave you guys some good information. So right now, there is a shortage of the Ultimate Top Coat, both in the gloss and the matte, due to the raw material and a worldwide shortage of urethane. The product is hard to find. However, I've been told that we're going to be getting it in soon. So go to our website, sign up for our newsletter, and as soon as we get the product in, we're going to send out notification to everybody that the product is still available, and you'll be able to find it on our website at RK3Designs.com. Also, we have a full line of the Stone Coat Countertop products, colorants, and dyes, so check us out. All right, guys, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell for future notifications. That way you guys know every time that we post a video. And until next time, remember, don't be scared, move forward, and be creative.